When he came back to Tottenham as an Arsenal player, the crowd were unbelievably abusive towards him.
It was very intense. You could cut the atmosphere. You could just feel it was different.
Sol Campbell comes out to face the music, and you'd be forgiven for thinking that this North London derby revolved around just one man.
Back then, there was no support. People were just allowed to just carry on in a disgraceful way.
Sol is a sensitive human being, so obviously he felt it, but he didn't show it.
Obviously he's a great player, and obviously all the managers were desperate to keep him on the books.
The world was his oyster.
He was become one of the best players that Spurs had ever had in that position. Fans absolutely adored him.
Campbell's star is still very much in the ascendancy. At international level, he returned from the World Cup with a greatly enhanced reputation. He's a player in demand, though he says for the moment he's staying put.
I'm a Tottenham man, and I'm ready to play for Tottenham. You know, I've been here for a long time, and the fans have been brilliant to me. And you know, what else can I ask for?
No player likes to have any form of distraction, no matter how minute it is. He's the type of person, he just likes to have things clear, crystal clear. That's what he's done. He's telling the fans at Spurs that he's not going anywhere.
It seemed to be a big question, when will Sol Campbell sign a new contract? Spurs fans were starting to worry about it. The media were certainly wondering about it and where it was going. From what we heard behind the scenes, Sol was unhappy at some of the things that were happening at Spurs. There'd been a series of managers. He hadn't always seen eye to eye with those managers. There'd been an incident at Derby County where he'd been accused of breaking a steward's arm when it wasn't Sol. It was another player had been involved in a fracas, but I don't think Sol felt he was properly supported by Spurs. And I think the signs were there.
Bosman was a somewhat obscure Belgian player who fought the rules that a player at the end of his contract could leave with no fee attached. So there was all sorts of changes going on in football regarding players who were able to move without compensation to the clubs. And Sol took advantage of that.
When did you know that he wasn't going to sign?
I knew, but George Graham and David Pleat would say to me, Chairman, this is just a game they're playing. It's a game. We've been in this business for a long, long time, Chairman. It's a game. He will be signing. Trust me, he will be signing. And I'm saying to these two very experienced people in the football world, you do not understand this Bosman ruling, do you? You don't understand it, that he can go free when his contract is up.
George Graham was the manager, I was the director of football, and I remember the first meeting we had at Brentwood with Sol, with Alan Sugar. Alan Sugar had been evidently very helpful in making Sol a Tottenham player, and we knew his contract was coming in, and we had one meeting with him. Sol gave us very little indication at that stage of what he was going to do. In fact, we were left completely up in the air.
These blokes like Graham and Pleat had been in the football industry for God knows how many years, and they just couldn't see it. They couldn't see it. And then when the penny drops afterwards, Campbell being the first real example of a free transfer, it then becomes part of the repertoire. Oh, he's on a free. He's on a free was a new word came out back then.
Since that time, I've seen Alan Sugar, and Alan Sugar, in retrospect, which is easy in hindsight, said that had George Graham and myself as director of football decided to stop Sol playing in the first team during that season, in other words, to not banish him, but say, right, you're going to play in the reserves, unless you sign a contract, you're going to be in the reserves. Had we left him out the team, he would have sacrificed his England place, and that may have forced him to sign a contract, and therefore George would put him back in the team. But we weren't going to cut our noses to spite our face.
The question of Sol Campbell's future is clearly a major headache for George Graham, and the Spurs manager all but admitted that the defender doesn't seem interested in staying.
If a big money offer came in now for him, would you take it?
I don't think it makes any difference because Sol has very, very clearly stated that no matter what offer comes in for him by any club, he's going to see his season out.
We'd had offers from Blackburn, we'd had offers from Manchester United, we'd had offers from Leeds for £18 million, right? And I remember telling the owner of Leeds at the time, you could offer £180 million. He ain't going anywhere. He's not going to leave. Can we have permission to talk to him? Sure, you can talk to you, blue in the face, but he ain't going anywhere.
I saw my job as just turning down the volume, turning down the noise, and allow him to just make a decision. You know, it was up to him. In football and a lot of other sports, there's a lot of influence, and people generally just want you to do what they want you to do. When you see the stick he gets, it's only because he just didn't do what people wanted him to do.
I know that I personally sat in 4 meetings with him. The negotiation methods of Sol Campbell and Sky Andrew just sit there like that. And you do all the talking and they nod in their head like that.
I suppose we thought deep down his love of Tottenham, he'd been there since he was 14 or whatever. We probably thought deep down that maybe come the end of the season he would re-sign and we'll give him a contract that's acceptable to him.
I got really angry with him one day because your lot, Sky, interviewed him one day and he's gone, no one at Tottenham's talking to me about a contract.
Has it hurt that they haven't come back to you with the improved offer?
Yeah, of course it's hurt. There's a lot of things we've got to sort out, you know, off the field. In a way, I'm not selfish. I'm looking at the kind of situation, I want the club to do well. Rather wanting a contract and having money, I think the main thing is now is to get the club in good order. For me, I love the game of football and I want to keep on playing football for Tottenham. So it's you know, the ball's in their court now, so I've kind of laid my cards down and they've got to kind of move on and see what they're doing.
So what you're saying is to the club, come and talk to me?
Well, yeah.
At the end of the season, when the season's over and hopefully Spurs have got some silverware on the table, he'll talk to the club about a new contract.
So for the time being, Sol Campbell remains with Tottenham Hotspur stamped firmly on his heart?
Of course. Sol Campbell was a very honourable person.
I really did my nut. We've seen him 4 times and his agent just says, I'll call you tomorrow. And when you speak to him the next day, he's going, nah, still wants to stay.
Sol Campbell gets the winner. Spurs enjoy victory again here at White Hart Lane.
New attacking policy from George Graham, 3 strikers up front, but it was down to a defender to get the goal.
Yeah, you know, obviously with Stefan and Les and Sergei, you know, they're going to, cause some problems up there. Obviously, Les holding it up and spinning, but, you know, I'm glad.
What about your situation, Sol? Will you be staying at Tottenham?
I'm staying.
For the rest of the season or past this season?
Difficult questions, eh? I'm here.
You committed to the Tottenham?
I'm here.
Thanks, Sol.
Yep. You've got the champagne.
Thanks, Sol.
You're talking to a player after a game and their emotions are all about that game, their focus is on that game. I think you have to be cut some slack here. And he didn't say I'm staying for the rest of my career, he said I'm staying. Sometimes we ask these questions and we don't always get the answers that we think are honest and fair, but sometimes I think it's difficult for a player as well at that time. He can hardly say I'm leaving after scoring.
According to reports, the Spurs captain can now add an expensive move abroad to his summer options. Barcelona are believed to have offered him around 100 grand a week tax-free.
It's true is that Tom Parera, the Barcelona representative, went on Monday and met the Campbell camp, Sky Andrew and people like that, and he came out of that meeting and went back to Barcelona on Tuesday thinking the deal was done.
Inter Milan believe they've got their man. Club president Massimo Moratti has gone public on the affair. He said, "We will get Campbell. He is well liked by Cooper and he's ours."
It's news to me. You know, he's the first one who have told me, so I don't nothing about it at all.
I mean, Barcelona chased him round the garden, pardon the pun. Barcelona were flying over, I was flying over there.
You get a lot of calls from a lot of people. You might be going to Bayern Munich, might be going to Inter. You check these stories out and there wasn't really any substance into it. Clubs have huge lists of players that they're interested in, and Sol Campbell's name would be on those lists. But I don't think there was anything realistic at the time that seemed to us that any signs that any move was imminent.
Actually, I'm going to say this for the first time, and it's that he never actually said he's going to leave. So what happened was we had a meeting, and then in the evening on Sky Sports News, there was this ridiculous news splash saying that he was leaving, he'd asked for all this money, etc., etc. And I think that was a turning point for him. I don't think there was any going back after he saw that on the news.
When we spoke to Lord Sugar, he said he was telling the Spurs managers there's no point in having these meetings, his mind's made up, he knows he's going to leave at the end of his contract.
I can categorically tell you that at no point a Sol made up his mind that he was going to leave until that story came out, and then it was like, right, I'm going to speak to everybody.
The news that every Spurs fan dreaded is official. Sol Campbell is wanted by Arsenal. Arsene Wenger thinks Campbell could now be the man to bring the steel back to Arsenal's defence. Wenger said, "I personally believe that Sol Campbell being free would interest 20 clubs in the Premier League. I hope -1, Tottenham." Sol Campbell is of course of interest, being a great player, but he has come out himself and said he will stay at Tottenham, so what can I do?
People have mentioned Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal. Of those three, Arsenal represents the thorniest potential move. Is there the possibility of that kind of giant step forward? I haven't thought about I haven't made a decision on what I'm going to do next.
It's no secret Wenger needs world-class defenders. Dozens of clubs are sure to be keeping an eye on Campbell's contract talks.
Arsenal always had to identify the talent. It was never my decision because he had to coach them, he had to motivate them, he had to train them, and I have actually executed his wishes. Once we knew that Sol Campbell could be available, then we had to go into overdrive because he was such a prized possession.
Arsenal's history, we were trying to win trophies, and by adding Sol Campbell to that defence, it meant that we were going to win more trophies, because he was that much of a good player.
If you want to be successful at club level, then you've got to keep your best players, and Sol Campbell, without a shadow of a doubt, is one of those.
Obviously, it's so important to the team. I mean, Sol's a great player. I'm sure if Sol was put up for sale, then every club in the world maybe would want Sol Campbell in their team. He's a very private person. No one really knew what was going on in the background. There must have been huge amounts going on, a lot of speculation. Never about Arsenal, by the way, always about Inter Milan or Bayern Munich. And I think that would have been accepted from the Tottenham faithful.
So it's so long Sol as one of the most drawn-out sagas of the season finally ends. The club feel Campbell's wage demands were excessive.
We're disappointed at what perhaps I would term the slightly unacceptable face of where football is going to at this moment in time. A contract demand of around £140,000 a week, frankly, is obscene. At the end of the day, the market will determine exactly what he's going to get. The club did its very best.
Did you demand this basic salary that Spurs have talked about of £130,000 to £140,000 a week to stay at the club?
No.
Some reports, wherever they came from, said that you even asked for a £7 million signing on fee on top of that.
Not true.
And generally, how do you feel about the way the club's behaved?
Disappointed.
Hurt. But Sol was a character that, remember, he was the lowest paid player in the England team. He was one of the lowest paid players in the Tottenham team. But his focus wasn't about money, because if it was, then you would just go, where's my contract? I want more money. And no one talks about the fact that he put that to the side and said, I will do something when I'm ready. And nobody should be forced into signing a contract or anything like that.
Pretty much understand that
You know, if someone hasn't signed a contract, there's a good chance they'll leave. So first and foremost, if you're a player and you're left behind and he's gone, you want to see who else is coming in, see if we can replace him. He was almost irreplaceable, so. But it was and I understand it was very difficult for the fans to digest and the club. But to actually lose a player of that quality and get nothing for him was a huge blow.
A lot of people have got opinions on my life. It's about time I've had opinion on my own life.
So now the negotiations can begin in earnest. Sol Campbell can name his price and pick his club pretty much anywhere in Europe. Tottenham's fans recognise that now, but there is one condition. Please don't make it Arsenal.
He knows and his agent knows where we stand on it. He has said he will make a decision by perhaps the first week in July, and we've got to wait for that. If it doesn't come by then, I guess we'll have to fry our fish elsewhere. But hopefully if he stays this side of the channel, it'll be Dover, Sol.
Sol had a very good agent, Sky Andrew, who worked with him, and he was very helpful and very, very discreet. So we didn't know who we were up against. We had a guess that I think it was Real Madrid or AC Milan at the time, and Bayern Munich came in. And it all manifested itself in the press that we realised we were under pressure. Most of our meetings were done after midnight, walking around my garden in Totteridge, and because he was paranoid, quite rightly, of getting busted by the paparazzi. And we had to make sure that it was very, very private and nobody would know about it. So it was at his decision to meet after midnight.
I think we had to walk in the garden, we had to walk on the road with the dogs in the middle of the night. And Sol had ran the garden with Mr. Dean, and he had this chat with Arsene on the sofa.
And of course there was one famous occasion when he didn't leave my house till about 3 o'clock. And my youngest son was just coming back from the West End, and actually he busted us, of all people. So he walked in and very smartly he said, "Hi guys," he said, "would you like some breakfast?" And then he made us some French toast, I think.
Considering it was such a big possible move, Sol hardly spoke to Arsene Wenger or Mr. Dean. I spoke to them on his behalf. Even then I was a bit cagey. It wouldn't have surprised me if Mr. Dean had just said, "Oh, I've had enough with this fiasco," because we kept refusing to speak to anybody.
He realised that moving to Arsenal, was he going to have a better chance at the time of being perhaps more successful in his career? Moving, particularly with Arsene Wenger, was Arsene Wenger going to take his career to another level? And I think that was a very important part of his decision making.
Arsene said to him, "Don't make a decision on hate," which just resonated with him, and it resonated with me because he was absolutely correct. If Arsene Wenger wasn't the manager and David Dein wasn't the CEO, this deal would have never happened. I had my own friends who said to me, who were Tottenham supporters, that said, "If he goes Tottenham, we're done."
My decision was on the ball, totally. And a great team, manager, the setup is geared up to win. So I want to be here, and I'm here now.
I try to attract him here because for me he's the best. And as well, I must say, an opportunity to have a player who's a free agent of his level is impossible to sign.
Financially, it would have been a lot more lucrative for Sol to go abroad. But in the end, it's decided it's a football decision.
I've done everything right. You know, my contract's run out now. I'm a free agent. I decided I wanted to come to Arsenal.
I didn't know for certain, but the hint, although nothing definite, was that Sol will be there. But it was very much off the record. Couldn't get out. I just felt confident that something was happening.
I love theatre, so I wanted to make it pretty dramatic, because it was dramatic. But we managed remarkably to keep it under wraps, that nobody knew we were signing Sol Campbell. And the famous day we did it, the press thought, actually, I think we were going to sign Richard Wright, I think from Everton at the time. So they sent mainly their number 2s, some number 1s, but mainly, and it wasn't even a full gathering of the press at London Colney.
We got no idea what was going on. The only way that we seemed to know that a player was coming was that the physio and the club doctor would go missing because they were actually running a physical on the player. When we found out that it was Sol, we were all happy. Especially me as well, because if it had been Richard Wright, that meant it was like competition for me.
We said to our reporter, when you get there, keep an eye out. It's not going to be Richard Wright on his own. There's something else happening here. Anyway, the Arsenal training ground was quite new and they planted some hedges, but the hedges hadn't fully grown. And our reporter's there and he suddenly sees people walking along by the side of the hedge, the other side of the hedge from him. And because the hedge hasn't grown and Sol Campbell is 6'2", he sees it's Sol Campbell walking past him and he's so excited he gets on the phone. I can't believe I've just seen Sol Campbell. He's phoning the office. I've seen Sol Campbell here.
It came quite out of the blue, brilliant by Arsenal, I suppose, the way they handled it, because they did it very furtively, secretly. All of a sudden they announced Sol Campbell is an Arsenal player.
So Sol was standing behind the curtain with his arms crossed in an Arsenal kit and very majestically just looking out, ready to look out when the curtain opened.
David Dein opened the door and he said, "I'd just like to introduce you to Sol Campbell."
And I can remember Martin Lipton, who at the time worked for the Daily Mail. He was a Spurs fan. The first thing came out we could hear was me, it's Sol Campbell.
And the guy was like, he couldn't believe it.
When he joined us, I thought, yeah, this is a really brave move, and I'm quite glad I weren't on the coach when Sol went back to Tottenham, because the coach didn't last very long.
The streets were lined with Tottenham fans who weren't happy, shall I say, to say the least. Even though it's a huge atmosphere normally, it was just an extra edge to that game.
There was no support, and people were just allowed to just carry on in a disgraceful way, with no recourse, and no one helped. No one jumped in to say, well, this behaviour and what people are saying is disgusting.
He showed his character when he walked out onto the pitch. He showed his strength and his character.
Well, never estimate, Sol is a sensitive human being. So obviously he felt it, but he didn't show it. He is, as I say, a very strong guy, mentally and physically.
We knew Sol as a character, we knew what he'd be like, we knew he'd be able to handle that situation, and I think he proved that he handled it pretty well.
When I retired, I got asked to go to Tottenham as their goalkeeping coach by a certain Mr. Redknapp, and I was like, absolutely no way. It wasn't. No, I couldn't do it.
Have you ever forgiven him?
No. To do what he did, I think, was like one of the most nastiest crimes you could commit in Premier League history.
I don't think a situation like this will ever come up again, because I think that now clubs are very aware. What I've learned is that it's not about whether you do it right or wrong, it's about whether you do what people want you to do. A lot of people couldn't accept that someone like him that was so quiet and possibly made that move.
I was never really bitter, because I understood. Been in football a while, and you get many disappointments. You get more disappointments than you get highs. Legacy is that he played in Invincibles. He had some very successful years at Arsenal.
We're there to assemble the best team we can, and he was a major part of the jigsaw puzzle.
My time at Arsenal was very successful. It was an amazing time there, and I won a lot, and I broke loads of records, and I played with amazing world-class players.
So is it time to close that chapter and move on?
It's time to move on and allow me to live, allow me to kind of, do whatever I want to do and work in football and not work in football. Just let me just live my life and move on.
Sol Campbell, 2 championship medals in 3 seasons after 9 years this spring.